To create a new online quiz, first you would log on, then you would go to your home page and click on Resources. Next, you would select Assignments, Homework, and Quizzes. This will open the Assignments and Quizzes page. Click on the button that says Create Quiz. Then you will be required to enter some information about your quiz. First of all, you need to give it an ID, which could be the subject. And then next you would have to give it a title. And I am selecting for the title Periodic Table. The description area, which is optional, would give extra information to the student and any special instructions. So if you have any special instructions, you can enter it here. Next, you have to specify when the quiz will be available. This will show the date and time which students will be able to start working on the task. You would also choose a due date, which is the deadline by which students have to submit their work on this particular task. For each quiz, you have options as to how you wish to design the quiz. Keep in mind that at this stage, you are creating a quiz template. You are setting things up, and that you will add the questions later. You have several choices, which include randomized questions. When this option is on, all users will receive the questions in a random order. So each time a quiz is started, the order in which the questions appear is different. You can also choose to randomize answers. This means that if students are given possible answers, for example, like multiple choice questions, this option would force each set of answers to appear in a random order. There is also an option to allow students to navigate over the questions. When this option is on, users are allowed to skip a question and go back and forth over the questions, instead of completing them in a set order. So if students want to skip a question and go back to it later, they're able to do so. And I'm going to uncheck this one right now, and I'll explain later why I'm doing that. Next is an option to time the quiz. If you select this option, you can specify the maximum number of minutes given to the student to complete the quiz. Once this time expires, the student will not be able to continue with the quiz. If you wish, you can deselect this option, and then later you have the option to specify timing for each individual question. So for now, I'm just going to turn this option off. Then you have the option to show correct answers to the student. If you do not want to do that, you can click or select Do Not Show. Or you can choose to show the correct answer after a student has submitted their answer. The third option will not show the correct answer after a question. Rather, it will provide a summary at the end of the quiz showing all the questions and what the correct answers are. Upon completion of the quiz, the student is provided with a score of all the points achieved based on his or her answers. However, if there are open questions in which the student has to type out an answer, then these answers will have to be reviewed first by the teacher, so they're not calculated at this stage. Once the teacher views the answers and accepts the student's work, then the student will receive his or her final score. So I'm going to click Accept. And you will be given a message telling you that your quiz has been created and saved, but you still need to work on it. Here you may select students who are going to be taking this quiz, or you can save that for later. I'm going to add my questions first, and then later I will choose the students. So your template has been set up, and now you are going to build the questions for the quiz. So we will click Add Question, and the first thing you have to do is to add the question. And the question, it's important because the student will get to read this first, so it's important that the question is clear and not confusing to the student. For example, I'm going to choose, because this is chemistry, how many elements are in the periodic table? Then you have a choice to give more information about your question that will help the student in deciding on an answer. So I'm just going to paste in some extra information that tells the student be sure to count the ones that have been confirmed since 2016. Next, there are 4 different question types that you can choose from, and you can specify how you want the students to answer the questions. So the first answer type is select one. That means there's only one answer, and the student will need to select that and submit it. The second choice says that the student must select all. That means all answers. For these questions, there might be more than one answer. For example, in the case of multiple choice questions, there could be 5 choices, but only 2 are correct. When you assign points to this particular question, if there are 2 correct answers, you may wish to assign 10 points for each correct answer, which means the total value will be 20 points. But be aware that if the student has to select 2 answers, then if they select more than 2, then they receive 0 points. Or if they select 2 answers and 1 wrong answer, again 0 points. If they select all 5 answers, then the student is probably guessing. So again, 0 points. Even if the student selects 1 correct answer, and that's it, still 0 points, because the student is required to select the correct answers, all of the correct answers, which are just 2. The next question, true and false questions, are a special type of one-answer questions, and students will only have the true or false as options to choose from. Any questions with no predefined answers are called open questions. For such questions as these, students will have to type their answers, which could be a couple of sentences, and the length of the answer would depend on what the question is asking. Next, there's an option to attach a file. You can upload an attachment. This could be an image or any other media or document file that would go along with the question. And the files can be selected from your computer by browsing and finding the folder where the file is located and then uploading it. Or it could be found in your resources library. You also have the option to give some feedback as the students are answering the questions. For some questions, you might want to provide immediate feedback to the students as soon as they submit their answers. This feedback could be a short text message that appears to the student. It could be a positive or encouraging response. It also could be a thank you message for completing the question. Or it could even be a hint as to what the answer might be. So, if you wish to provide feedback as the student does the quiz, then you just fill in the optional feedback field. There is also an option to have questions with a set time, and the question would have to be completed in that time frame. If you want to specify a maximum time limit, then you would have to specify it in minutes and seconds. And when the question has been given a time limit and it's opened by the student, a clock will be turned on counting the time remaining. Once the time runs out, the question will be locked and an answer will not be allowed. Please note that Time questions can only be configured for quizzes which do not allow back and forth navigation. Remember when we were setting up the quiz template at the beginning? If you had already selected the option Allow Students to Navigate over the Questions, then this feature would not appear right now. So this would need to have been decided in the initial setup as to whether you're going to time the quiz and how you're going to do it. Or you can choose not to time it at all. Click Apply. And then you get to add the answer. Remember, this was a select one answer. So we're going to add, just a moment, let me just go back here. I'm going to change this one first. And I'm just going to click to change. And I'm just going to put in an answer. And I'm just going to uncheck it because that's not the correct answer. I'm going to choose another one and change that one as well. And then I'm going to add another answer. And apply. Okay, so the next step, you've completed all that you need to do for the question. You can go to the red action button, and if you want to edit your question, you can do so right now because you have the option to do so, to modify it. You could remove the question if you change your mind. You can add a new question if you're ready to move on. Or you can copy this question to save yourself some time if you have a question that is similar in design. Now I'm going to go back to the quizzes list. By the way, when you're trying to decide on whether or not you're going to modify a question, keep in mind that questions of quizzes that are already in progress, like students have already started to work on them, they cannot be modified. For these quizzes, you can only change the time frame, the deadline, and some other basic information. And the questions cannot be edited or changed. But here's the list of quizzes and assignments that have been created so far. This is the one that we were just working on. And I'm going to go to the action button. And as I said, remember, you cannot make any changes if you've already assigned students. In this case, I have not done that yet, so I could make changes. So I'm going to select my students from here and click Add User. Here's a list of the students that I'm teaching, and I'm going to select Student A. And it shows me that Student A has been added to the list. So Student A, when they log on to their home page and go to their assignment folder, they can find this particular quiz. They will also see on the home page that any pending quizzes or assignments that they need to complete. Okay, back to the list. Another important feature of a quiz is that it can be copied. This is a time-saving feature for you, and that's a good one to be able to do. You can also preview the quiz as a student, so you can click on the quiz and have a look and see what it looks like, and it will show you what the student will see. And if you want to delete the quiz, you can do so right here. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that if you do delete the quiz, a quiz that's been completed by a student, it will also be deleted in the student's records as well. So that's something to keep in mind. And if you want to view a student's work, if a student has already completed the quiz, I'll show you a sample of what we can do here. We can go to a quiz that a student has already worked on, the multiplication 2-digit by 2-digit number, and go to your action button and select View Progress. Then you'll see this is a student that has worked on this particular assignment, and you can click on the red action button and preview. It will bring forth the student's work, and you'll see that the first question was a true and false question, one answer, so it's already been scored, and it was correct. So the student received 10 points out of 10. This particular question, you have to decide if this is the correct answer. So you would choose the number of points that you'd want to give to this particular question, and then you would indicate if it's correct and whether you are accepting it or not. And you also would have the choice to, if the answers are wrong that the student put in there, you can choose to remove the answers and get the student to repeat the quiz, do it over. This completes the video on how to create a quiz, how to maintain it, and how to share it with students. Thank you for viewing.